Hello and welcome to those of you joining us on Lincolnshire Reporter. My name is Stefan Pidluzhny and with me for the 8th in our series of live Facebook chats with the candidates standing in the Sleaford North Hykeham by-election is independent Paul Coyne. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Stefan. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us as well. So to start off with, why are you standing in the by-election?
Basically, I'm standing in the by-election because I felt that something had to be done about the problem of continued underfunding for Lincolnshire as a whole, which obviously affects Sleaford North Hykeham. And I didn't think that there was a likelihood that there would be anybody who would try and rally the support of the whole of the electorate to send a clear and unambiguous message to central government that we've had enough of being at the back of the queue constantly.
So underfunding in terms of what?
Central government funding to Lincolnshire as a whole. It's well known.
In what areas?
In every single area. The local area gets funding from central government. We've always been underfunded. We've fallen further and further behind, and there's no sign of us being given any opportunity to catch back up. That's having an impact on every single service that's provided locally and throughout Lincolnshire as a whole. Most of the candidates are actually they're treating this really as a general election. All of the main parties are campaigning against each other as if they were fighting a general election 3 years early, and it is not a general election.
How's it different to a general election?
This is a by-election. A general election, people are voting up and down the country to select a government. This is a by-election. It is not about selecting a government to lead this country forward. It's about selecting somebody who can represent the people of this constituency well.
Yeah. And reading your rosette there, it says giving voters a genuine choice.
Yes.
What is the choice you're giving voters?
I'm saying that the voters can either vote at this election as if it's a general election, vote for a party and make no difference at all, which is status quo. You're voting for the certainty that nothing will change. Or you can vote for me, stand alongside me, send a clear message to government and say, we want proper funding. And that is where the change comes in.
Yeah. What experience do you have of sort of political life?
I've had over 20 years experience as a local government officer at district level prior to becoming a Sleaford Town Councillor for the first time in May 2015. So during that time I've had a lot of experience. I've got highly involved.
Works, yeah.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. Yeah, one of the key issues is infrastructure, especially roads. Which roads and which areas of Sleaford North Hykeham do you think need more investments and upgrades?
If I can go back briefly to my work as a Sleaford Town Councillor.
Of course, yeah.
At the very beginning of this year, I was appointed as the lead of NG34 plan, which is the neighbourhood plan for Sleaford and Kirkby-Laythorpe.
Right.
So we've been putting forward early proposals for what we believe needs to be put in place on a road infrastructure level, which includes dualling the A17, dualling the A15, a southern bypass around Sleaford, linking the A15 to the A17, which in itself will actually serve to make the plans to build huge housing developments of 1,400 and 1,450 houses feasible. And what has happened since we've launched those proposals is, for instance, that at least the Liberal Democrat Party have taken on board those and included them within their own election leaflets.
So in terms of the A17 and A15, would you be looking at dualling the whole of those stretches?
I believe they need to. The trouble is that we haven't got a proper transport infrastructure within Lincolnshire. And I know that the NHS is a big hot potato at the moment. And
which we'll get onto in a few minutes.
So, well, I was just linking it into that, if I may, Stefan. What I've been told is that within 5 to 10 years, the aim is to have a single mega hospital to serve the whole of Lincolnshire. Now, if you haven't got the road system in place, people can't get to that hospital properly. So it's all part of the same thing, but I will allow you to get back to your
So in
questions.
terms of the roads like the A17, the A15, Southern Bypass, etc., all this sounds great. How much money is it going to cost, though?
I can't tell you how much it's going to cost.
Who's going to pay for it, then? Maybe that's a...
Yeah. Government should be giving us a fair crack of the whip with funding, and they're not doing it. If the people get behind this and say, we're not prepared to stand for this anymore, then the government has to take note.
What's
because
in
it's
it?
a protest vote. What's in it for?
What's in it for the government, though? Because it's a Conservative majority of around 24,000.
Yes.
Why would they turn around and then,
Well,
if we're to believe what you're saying, and say, well, we'll give you lots more money for all these dualling of the roads, to the detriment of other areas, perhaps?
Well, it's not necessarily to the detriment of other areas. Other areas are being essentially overfunded in relation to Lincolnshire, and Lincolnshire is having to pay for infrastructure in other places. Overnight, we've had a by-election result. I assume you're well familiar with that. And I don't know the exact figure, but it's roughly 23,000. Majority has been overturned. This is a slightly larger majority. But there's no reason that it can't be overturned. I'm a lifetime Conservative voter. I've never voted for anybody other than a Conservative. But to be quite honest, even if I weren't standing as a candidate, I would find it very, very difficult to vote for Caroline Johnson, as a lot of the staunch Conservative voters I've spoken to around the constituency are also in that same position. They think she's the wrong candidate.
Why have you moved away from the Conservative Party?
It's not a case of moving away. I never joined the Conservative Party because, well, I had a long time ago aspirations to become an MP, but I never joined the Conservative Party because I knew that I would not want to be subject to the whip, the party whip. So I never joined. This by-election has come completely out of the blue, and because I'd had a little bit of experience at a relatively lowly level, I decided to give it a go this time. Throw my hat in the ring, as the saying goes.
Yeah. You've mentioned the NHS, which is obviously a very important issue in the by-election. In terms of Grantham A&E, what do you think could have been done differently there?
I think at the moment that they're in the position, because of staffing shortages, that they are left with no alternative. But I see
Who's to blame for the shortages?
It's a combination of factors, but the overnight closures is just part of the downgrading of our local hospitals. We need local hospitals to be kept open with the basic services that people need locally. A difficulty with the Conservative approach at the moment is that their candidate, Dr. Caroline Johnson, is an extremely qualified consultant paediatrician.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of Conservatives out and about within the constituency are saying they are having real difficulty as to whether they can vote for her because of the fact that, although she's part-time, if she gives up her part-time job, that is a loss to the National Health Service that it cannot afford. If she stays,
one person.
It doesn't matter whether it's one person. The point that it comes back to is that if she gives up her part-time work, and yes, it is only part-time work, but it's very valuable work, if she gives up that part-time work, she will only be a part-time Member of Parliament for the constituents, and she will not be giving them their full representation. So this is the quandary that a lot of die-hard Conservatives are having, and I consider myself to be a die-hard Conservative voter, and lots of people are telling me across the board, regardless of which party they were voting for at the last election, the last general election, they are behind me because they believe in what I say, and the fact that this is their only chance to get that full message across that we need to be properly funded and we need to be given the opportunity to catch up for lost ground.
Yeah. Back to Grantham A&E, what do you think needs to happen now?
I can't see them being able to do anything at the moment.
Do you think they'll reopen in February?
I'm hopeful that they will. They have given an undertaking as to what they're trying to put in place, and I think we have to give them the chance to put that in place. Just as the government is trying to put together the strategy for negotiating an exit from the EU, and they have to be allowed to do that.
Okay, well, you brought up Brexit, so I'll ask you a few questions on that then.
Go on, Stefan.
How did you vote in the referendum?
I voted leave.
And why did you vote to leave?
I voted leave because I felt that that was in the best interests of the country. I'd hoped that the EU would have undertaken fundamental and radical reform that it needed voluntarily. There's no appetite within Europe to reform the EU properly, so I believe that we had no alternative but to vote leave.
Will the NHS, and of course that includes Sleaford North Hykeham, will that benefit from the £350 million a week that was promised? by the Leave campaign?
I don't want to get into all these extra bits that were bolted on.
But it was obviously, it wasn't really bolted on, it was like what was bolted onto the side of a bus perhaps.
It bolted onto the side.
It was obviously a very important campaign pledge. Will it happen now?
The difficulty with the two campaign sides for Leave or Remain was that neither of those campaigns were really in a position to implement government policy. They were campaigns, and that is all. The same as, I understand you've probably interviewed Sarah Stark earlier today, and she is campaigning against the overnight closure of Grantham A&E. They are campaigns. They do not have weight behind them that can determine policy.
Will you be looking forward perhaps to the UK taking back control of laws from Brussels?
When we had the Conservative Party leadership challenge earlier this year, Andrea Leadsom clearly stated that she had been part of a group of MPs who, over the last couple of years or so, had been looking closely at which parts of European legislation that had been incorporated into the UK legislation we would need to keep, and which bits we could repeal.
Which bits do you think we should repeal? Gives a couple of laws which you think, well, we don't actually really need. There must be a couple if you voted Leave.
Well, I wasn't looking at it purely from the law, the legislative
But that must be
side of view.
one of the reasons. It might not have been your main reason, as you've said, but it must have been one of the reasons.
I hadn't thought about at that time when I voted as to which specific laws. One of the things that that basically swung things for me was the fact that there were instances where I believed that the European courts or the European legislature should have been bringing in laws, and they hadn't, and then they were bringing in other regulations that we did not need.
So, for instance, which ones?
Well, for instance, protecting individual workers' pension contributions to workplace pensions.
That shouldn't have been brought in.
No. There is no protection, proper protection. Decades ago, we had it was a Daily Mirror group, I believe, where they had the workers had put hundreds of millions of pounds into their pension fund, and then it was raided by the owner of the company. And we've had recently the difficulty with Peter Green from BHS, where he's Philip Green, sorry. I knew I'd get the name wrong. where he basically has wiped out.
But the EU has also introduced lots of laws on workers' rights.
I'm not disputing that they've brought in a lot of elements which are beneficial, but this is one area where historically we knew there was a potential problem. The UK government has done nothing to prevent workers' pension contributions from being raided, but if the UK government failed to do it, isn't it reasonable to expect that Europe will do it to protect us? They haven't done that. That is something that ought to have been done, but they're more interested in issuing regulations that say that if you have a pre-packaged portion of fish, you have to put a warning label on it saying that it may contain fish.
Is it really such a big issue though if they do that?
They seem to have their priorities wrong.
Okay. In terms of the constituency as well, moving away from Europe and back to Sleaford North Hykeham, it's a constituency. It's a very large one. It goes all the way almost down to Grantham, obviously just to North Hykeham, which is near us in Lincoln. It goes quite a long way east as well, and a lot of people look towards Newark as well. How do you go about sort of bringing all those people together?
In what way do you mean bringing them together?
Well, because obviously they probably don't see themselves as, people from North Hykeham probably don't feel that they're sort of similar to people living in Great Gonaby, for example. Obviously they're both from Lincolnshire, but they probably don't associate themselves any further than that.
Right, I know exactly what you mean now, Stefan. I think of Sleaford North Hykeham constituency in a way as yin and yang. That's the way it seems to be, that there's part of it which is North Hykeham predominantly, which, because of its close proximity to Lincoln, has all the benefit of the infrastructure, services and amenities that Lincoln has to offer. The other part of it, if we call that yin, and then you've got yang on the other side, which is Sleaford and the vast majority of the villagers. And if they want to enjoy those same facilities, amenities and services, they have to travel in different directions to get them. I don't think of it so much as being a question of uniting those different parts of the constituency. I see it as an MP needing to represent every single resident of the constituency, regardless of where they live and what services they have or haven't got.
Okay. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for.
Thanks
a lot for joining us, Paul. And
Thank you very much,
the last person who will be,
pleasure.
as I said, the last person that will be joining us in just over an hour's time, or just under an hour's time, should I say, is Marianne Overton from the Lincolnshire Independent.